Morning, boys and girls. I hope that you're staying safe and well at home. I can see that you're all working really hard at home on your home learning, so well done. I'm going to be reading chapter 3 of our class novel this morning, which is George's Marvellous Medicine. It's one of my absolute favourites. I'm really excited that we've chosen it to read. This chapter is called George Begins to Make the Medicine, so he's just collecting all of his ingredients together. What you could do before we even start reading is you could have a think or a guess about the ingredients that he's going to add. Have a think, what is he going to add? What would you add to your own marvellous medicine if you could make one? So, George begins to make the medicine. George took an enormous saucepan out of the cupboard and placed it on the kitchen table. "George," came a shrill voice from the next room. "What are you doing?" "Nothing, Grandma," he called out. "You needn't think I can't hear you just because the door's closed. You're rattling the saucepans." "Oh, I'm just tidying the kitchen, Grandma." Then there was silence. George had absolutely no doubts whatsoever about how he was going to make his famous medicine. He wasn't going to fool around, wondering whether to put in a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Quite simply, he was going to put in everything. There would be no messing about, no hesitating, no wondering whether a particular thing would knock the old girl sideways. The rule was this: whatever he saw, if it was runny, powdery, gooey, in it went. Nobody had ever made a medicine like it. If it didn't actually cure Grandma, then it would anyway cause some exciting results. It would be worth watching. George decided to work his way round the various rooms one at a time and see what they had to offer. He would go first to the bathroom, so upstairs he went, carrying the enormous two-handled saucepan before him. In the bathroom, he gazed longingly at the famous and dreaded medicine cupboard, but he didn't go near it. It was the one thing in the entire house that he was forbidden to touch. And you know at home you'll be the same. You don't touch the medicine cupboard in the bathroom. He had made solemn promises to his parents about this, and he wasn't going to break them. There were things in there, they had told him, that could actually kill a person, and although he was out to give Grandma a pretty fiery mouth, he didn't really want a dead body on his hands. George put the saucepan on the floor and went to work. Number 1 was a bottle labelled Golden Gloss hair shampoo. He emptied it into the pan. "That ought to wash her tummy nice and clean," he said. He took a full tube of toothpaste and squeezed the whole lot in one long worm. "Maybe that will brighten up those horrid brown teeth of hers," he said. There was an aerosol can of super foam shaving soap belonging to his father. George loved playing with aerosols. He pressed the button and he kept his finger on it until there was nothing left. A wonderful mountain of white foam built up in the giant saucepan. With his fingers, he scooped out the contents of a jar of vitamin-rich face cream. In went a small bottle of scarlet nail polish. "If the toothpaste doesn't clean her teeth," George said, "then this will paint them as red as roses." He found another jar of creamy stuff labelled hair remover. "Smear it on your legs," it said, "and allow to remain for 5 minutes." George tipped it all into the saucepan. There was a bottle of yellow stuff inside it called Dishworth's famous dandruff cure. In it went. There was also something called Brilliant for cleaning false teeth. It was a white powder. In that went too. He found another aerosol can, Nevermore Pumpkin deodorant spray, guaranteed, it said, to keep away unpleasant body smells for a whole day. "She could use plenty of that," George said as he sprayed the entire canful in the saucepan. Liquid paraffin, the next one was called. It was quite a big bottle. He hadn't the faintest idea of what it did to you, but he poured it in anyway. That, he thought, looking around him, was about all from the bathroom. On his mother's dressing table in the bedroom, George found yet another lovely aerosol can. It was called Helga's Hair Set. Hold 12 inches away from the hair and spray lightly. He squirted the whole lot into the saucepan. He did enjoy squirting these aerosols. There was a bottle of perfume called Flowers of Turnips. It smelt like old cheese. Ooh. In it went. and into went a large round box of powder. It was called pink plaster. There was a powder puff on top, and he threw that in as well for good luck. He found a couple of lipsticks. He pulled the greasy red things out of their little cases and added them to the mixture. The bedroom had nothing more to offer, so George carried the enormous saucepan downstairs again and trotted into the laundry room, where the shelves were full of all sorts of household items. And the first one he took down was a large box of super white for automatic washing machines. Dirt, it said, will disappear like magic. George didn't know whether Grandma was automatic or not, but she was certainly a dirty old woman, so she'd better have it all, he said, tipping the whole box full in. Then there was a big tin of Waxwell's floor polish. It removes filth and foul messes from your floor and leaves everything shiny bright, it said. George scooped the orange-coloured waxy stuff out of the tin and plonked it into the pan. There was a round cardboard carton labelled flea powder for dogs. Keep well away from the dog's food, it said, because this powder, if eaten, will make the dog explode. Good, said George, pouring it all in the saucepan. He found a box of canary seed on the old shelf. Perhaps it'll make the old birds sing, he said, and in it went. George explored the box with shoe cleaning materials, brushes and tins and dusters. Well now, he thought, Grandma's medicine is brown, so my medicine must also be brown, or she'll smell a rat. The way to colour it, he decided, would be brown shoe polish. The large tin he chose was labelled dark tan. Splendid! He scooped it all out with an old spoon and plopped it into the pan. He would stir it up later. On his way back to the kitchen, George saw a bottle of gin standing on the sideboard. Grandma was very fond of gin. She was allowed to have a small nip of it every evening. Now he'd give her a treat. He would pour in the whole bottle. He did. Back in the kitchen, George put the huge saucepan on the table and went over to the cupboard that served as a larder. The shelves were bulging with bottles and jars of every sort. He chose the following and emptied them one by one into the saucepan. A tin of curry powder, a tin of mustard powder, a bottle of extra hot chili sauce, a tin of black peppercorns, and a bottle of horseradish sauce. There, he said aloud, that should do it. George! Came a screechy voice from the other room. Who are you talking to in there? What are you up to? Nothing, Grandma, absolutely nothing. He called back. Is it time for my medicine yet? No, Grandma, not for about half an hour. Well, just see you don't forget it. I won't, Grandma, George said. I promise I won't. That is the chapter finished. Oh my goodness. So I hope that in the next chapter we'll find out what happens to Grandma. I hope you enjoyed that. And I also want to say, just before I go, a big well done to everyone that's doing a fantastic home learning at home. I'm loving seeing all your work up on Teams.